show of support. Thank you all for being here. Bob Trusela was a kind and gentle soul who fed so many of us over many an occasion. From casual dinners to major milestones, he helped our community celebrate the most important moments of our lives. From our communions, to our weddings, to our funerals, Bob was in all of our lives. We loved him, and he loved us. And he shared that love by way of food. He would say, anytime, any place. Bob welcomed customers into his restaurant as if they were family. And that's what made him so loved, that welcoming spirit he always sought to foster. He was authentic, his food was authentic, and the experience of being his friend was always, shall we say, authentic. I'll share with you a quick story. Film LA is responsible in the city to put and approve film permits in the city of Los Angeles. And one day, his parking lot across from Otto was taken by the film crews. He called me right away and said, they promised me some parking spots. Okay, let me call the main guy at Film LA. Film LA, I get on the phone with him, and he goes, is Bob Trusela your cousin, Councilman? I said, listen, we're related. His father-in-law and my mom are from the same town. Councilman, he threw a bunch of F-bombs in one sentence. You go, listen, he comes with passion. So give him the parking spots that you promised. In thinking about his restaurant, I paused to think about his dishes. Fried calamari, the beet salad, that she loves, is her favorite. The bolognese pappardelle, right close, always ready for me. The swordfish carpaccio, the olive oil and bread that his father-in-law Sal baked every morning. His love for us radiated through his edible masterpieces. A generous man he was, who generously fed an entire community. One of my favorite things about Bob Trusela was the fact that going to his restaurants, you never experienced a dull moment. You could walk in, the place would be packed, and he would always find a table for you. If you were indecisive about what to order, Bob would simply ask, what are you in the mood for? Chicken, beef, fish, pasta, what are you in the mood for? And he would rattle off some enticing specials or something, and a fish, specific fish that would just been brought in from the docks from his family or his cousins. And if you're still undecided, Bob would simply give you that grin that he would get and simply would say, tell you what, let's have some fun. And he would make food appear as if it was some biblical tale until your belly literally hurt and you can drink no more, at which point he would offer dessert. And if you refused, he was insulted. And if you had kids, like I did, at Trusela's, Bob would sneak outside, walk across the street to Cold Stone, and surprise the kids with a scoop of ice cream. That was Mateo's and Gia's favorite memory of Bob. In fact, on one more occasion, the only thing more plentiful than his food offerings and ice cream surprises was his generosity. This room is filled with people that experienced the full weight of his giving spirit. One story that I'll never forget was when Bob provided food to a family who lost their one-year-old son from an accident. Myself and my LAPD partners responded to the scene of the accident in the gardens right down the street and subsequently to the hospital. We as a unit at the senior lead office struggled with this loss and felt that it was important to provide some food for the family. And sure enough, Bob stepped up. Bob was everyone's hero. From his catering of numerous police benefit fundraisers to community events to helping his children's schools, Bob gave till it hurt and would be insulted if you dared to try to pay him. That's just who he was. He took as much pride in his generosity as he did in his presentation. Anytime you asked Bob to come and offer food for a community event, several things would happen. A small army of his loyal band of employees would appear. His booth, table, tent, wherever he was asked to set up would instantly become a mobile version of his restaurant, decorated like you were in the old world and ready for business. The smell of his food would drift through the event and would carry nearly as far as that infectious laugh of his. I want to share with you some interesting facts that most of us never knew, and some were also shared by Elon here. Maybe you know this one, but Bob loved cologne. Right? I think we all got a whiff of it at one point. But according to Josephine, it had to be the right cologne. You see, his sweat glands were off a bit. So he had to marinate himself in a specific cologne that Josephine picked. Bob, to my surprise, loved TV dinners. Who would have thought? Hungry Man brand. He carefully followed the instructions and mastered the right temperature for each little slot. His favorite dishes that he made were not Italian. He loved making chili and jambalaya. He loved reading Stephen King books. He enjoyed ice cream soup. It was specially done. Right, Nancy? He had to pre-freeze the bowl, then put down Haagen-Dazs Swiss vanilla ice cream with milk, and that was heaven for him. He was known to make multiple stops in the emergency room and had more lives than a cat, according to his doctor, Dr. Schmidt. His favorite dish was the John Wayne at Pacific Diner. And Josephine tells me he was just a big little kid. He loved birthdays and oftentimes would open presents early because he was just so excited. He'd not have a birthday, he'd have a birthday week. And he was an adrenaline junkie. I understand that he loved roller coasters with his kids. But aside from loving TV dinners and reading books and ice cream, the only thing I knew he took more pride in was, beyond his reputation, was his family. He spoke so often about his family, his kids in particular. I feel I can write my own A&E biography special from the amount of times he heard him talk. I heard him talk about his kids with such pride and joy. And as you heard, he met his wife, Josephine, at Avanti's restaurant, owned by Josephine's uncle, Joe Galletti. And technically speaking, he was his boss, as Elon indicated. So Bob would always make sure to dress appropriately for work and impress his boss, also the source of his affection. And Bob wasn't much of a detail-oriented person. In comes Josephine, who brought color and organization to the business. Perfect tag team effort. Bob loved showcasing Josephine's floral arrangements around the restaurant. He loved his three sons, Bobby, Tony, Louie, as well as his two children, of course, Isabella and Dominic, in his second marriage to Josephine. Josephine shared with me when they first found out that they were having a girl. Josephine says she's never seen him happier. He hurried to the store and brought a red velvet dress from Isabella. Bob would share with me how proud he was of Bella. He spoke often about how well she was doing in school and the time that he was able to get Isabella and her friends to a One Direction rehearsal. Yeah, he was everyone's hero. Dominic also meant the world to him. A special bond was created, for those you don't know, between father and son when they were both involved in a horrific traffic accident on the 710 freeway. Dominic was 3 at the time. 4 semi-trucks pinned their vehicle. Miraculously, they survived the crash. And since then, Bob and Dominic became completely attached. His son Bobby mirrored Bob at the restaurant. From my observations, Bob guided Bobby into the restaurant business. He was his mentor. Bobby had the same love, the same energy, the same joy to serve people. Bob was so proud of the days leading up to Louie and Emily's wedding. He shared with me how his son is off on his own and starting his own family. And with Tony, I was told that Tony was known as Bobby and Louie's punching bag growing up. Tony grew up quickly and developed into a loving, caring young man. And as I mentioned, Bob was a hard-working man. He labored 6 days a week to put food on the table, but Sundays was his day to be simply Dad. Whether it was reading with his kids or watching movies or WWE matches with Dominic, that was his day to spend time with his family. And he absolutely adored and loved Josephine's family. All 800 of them. Bob Trusela also loved the Los Angeles Police Department, which he saw by the general support he gave over the years through LAPD Harbor area fundraisers to ensure that officers could come into his restaurant and for a few moments of peace and royal treatment. He created a strong friendship with Captain Billy Hayes and his wife Judy. Both Bob and Judy came from the same hometown in Massachusetts. This love of the police department was a result of many members of his own family serving as cops, including his maternal grandfather, Dominic Maroney, who served in the Massachusetts State Police. Bob, as you heard, ran and operated a number of restaurants, as we all know it. But Bob's dream was to operate a restaurant at close to the waterfront. The closest he got was the historic Papadakis Taverna, located in downtown San Pedro. And when the opportunity presented itself to make a dream into reality, he jumped 2 feet into the fire, working day in and day night, working night and day to make Otto Trattoria happen. Bob was a classic maitre d'. He walked the dining room with a single-minded purpose, and that was to delight and please all of his guests. He knew what he liked, and he knew what you had to drink. Bob's dream of hospitality will live and thrive through the talented people that now consider Otto their home. His staff will carry on under Bob's dear friend, manager Stefano, and ongoing service by Carlos and others at the restaurant. They will play the music and serve the food, and as he wouldn't want things any other way. He believed in downtown San Pedro and the redevelopment of our waterfront and told me one day he would want to have a place along the waterfront, and we owe it to him to keep that dream alive. I pause to think of my next community event. I will have to face the reality that he will not be there. Not with his smile, his laugh, his sleeves rolled up, ready to work and represent his community that he loves so much. I don't like to think about it, looking out at the vendors in the crowd, knowing that he's not there. But what an ultimate token in life to have earned, that he will leave such a void that I can scarcely imagine how it can't be filled. To me, that will be his legacy. Those who knew him will never forget him, will miss him dearly, but are richer in the end for having known him. That's the Bob Trusela I knew. That's the Bob Trusela that we all knew here, and we will never, ever forget. I want to finally conclude with an adjourning motion that the entire Los Angeles City Council stood and we rose in Bob's memory on Tuesday. I was also joined by the Los Angeles County Supervisor, Don Kanabi, who did the same. The entire 5-member board of the entire county supervisor did the same and stood in silence for his memory. And I also want to note that our dear friend, Congresswoman Janice Hahn, is here, who Bob adored. And Janice, you can see Janice at your cells, and even more so at Oakville recently. Thank you, Congresswoman, for being here. So Josephine, I present to you this adjourning motion that reads, the City of Los Angeles in tribute. The Los Angeles City Council extends its deepest sympathy to you in the passing of your loved one, Bob Trusela, in whose memory all members stood in tribute and reverence as the council adjourned its meeting on June 11th. And we all have copies for the kids. Thank you, we love you.